What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Beyond the 90. And we've got a friend of the show, sort of Buonanotte. He was on this time last year, and he's, again, our football expert when it comes to South America. We've got Diego. Diego, man, it's so good to have you back. How's things
Good to see
been?
you. Good to see you, Neil. Yeah, it's been good. Very excited for the new player that's coming in. So we could get into that and see how that's gonna turn out.
Let's get into it. Yeah. Diego, again, I'll leave his Twitter below. Is there anything else you want to plug?
No, that's all.
Cool. I'll make sure to plug it below. But again, the player that's been doing the rounds in the last 48 hours, finally, we got somebody else to talk about apart from Begovic as a signing. Julia Carranza's coming. He's looking like he's coming in. So there you go. I think one of the things you put on Twitter was don't believe the statistics, but you've been excited for this player for quite a while.
I like Julian Carranza. It's been interesting because he did come out at Banfield first, in the Argentinian league, but he then made the switch to MLS. It ended up playing for Inter Miami. It was interesting because I think it fits the style of what Marty's trying to do right now. Um, so I like that. But he didn't really pan out too much at Inter Miami, and I think that that's something that a lot of people will be kind of looking at. It was goal production, which I think is something that we're lacking in that striker department. But then he ended up having that a trade to San Jose, and then that completely changed his whole entire career in that aspect. Actually, no, it wasn't San Jose. It was Philadelphia. So he went to Philadelphia, and then he completely kind of exploded his potential there. Was there for a while, and then he was finally able to make the move to Europe this past year. So that's why I say like I don't want people to get carried away because what he showed in Europe, I don't think is a true reflection of the player he is. It definitely will take a little bit of time to adapt, but I really like him as a player.
Yeah, and I think when you're mentioning it, it kind of sounds a little bit like Fatawu when he went over to Lisbon, didn't get the opportunities, didn't actually score the goals, but first couple of matches we saw, there's a real player in there. So in terms of the kind of forward, there's been talks of, as you mentioned, we've needed a centre forward, we've needed a striker. There's the difference, like you see that probably Ayu is more of a centre forward, Daka as a striker. Do you think he is that kind of striker, and what do you think he excels at?
Yeah, I think he definitely is that type of striker where he definitely can link the play. He likes to be associative. His link up play is somewhat average though, so it definitely is interesting in that aspect. But I think what we're getting is a guy who definitely will press, and that's his biggest virtue. I think pressing. He will commit to that, and that's one of his biggest virtues. As well as that, I think he's got a shot in him. He can take shots from outside the box, which is interesting. And he'll definitely look for our wingers. So I think that's very good for us. I think we get a player maybe that could play kind of like that IU role from what he's doing right now. And we'll definitely get more production from him than what Daka's giving us right now. So I think it's a good fit for us. I think for what we're committing to, which is a loan with an option to buy. I think we don't really lose anything from doing that.
Yeah, and I think it's just like for Tawu, or I think it was interesting when we see the contract, whether it's option to buy if you play a certain amount of appearances like Akron, or if we turn into that like for Tawu. So, or the likes of Callum Doyle was another one last time we were in the championship. In terms of another thing you mentioned, again, I'll get because I've done a little bit of prep, but as you mentioned, it's not always the statistics. In terms of how he performs, if I bring up kind of this. I see him fitting in as that. How do you mentioned he linked it with the wingers? We've got Mavidi, we've got probably spelled a little bit wrong. We've got Fatawu, Page, and Ayu. So do you think he would be able to drop deep and play potentially as like a false nine and link the play?
Exactly. That's exactly I think what he would definitely do with us. Probably yeah, go to the right more. He while he was at Philadelphia, he used to drop back more to the right and like play on the right, which would be really good because that means he would link up with a towel. So I could definitely see him doing that, and I think that that's very exciting for us. And always if he needs to, he will make runs into the box and he will try, and see if he could get any type of end product there. I think that's what's been hard for him because I think he's more of an associative player in that aspect. The goals haven't really flown too much. in something else. I think his first touch can sometimes be very iffy. It's not consistent. So I think that that's made him a little bit hard for him when he gets great balls and great service. Sometimes that he struggles to get those types of opportunities completed.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I hopefully we can improve that. But I think in terms of what we're looking for and the wingers that we have, him linking up with our wingers, I think will be really exciting.
Cool. No, I'm hoping so. We can specifically, one thing I was mentioning, one thing I've got in my notes around that, because he does seem like an all-round. You mentioned he could scoot from outside the box, but it's one thing when you're watching a YouTube highlight compared to like watching him game in, game out. Who do you think he'll get the best out of? As you mentioned, he drops right, potentially for Tawu, what's quite is he actually cuts in on the left and then hits it. So who do you think he will get the most out of, like in the attacking roles?
That's a great question. Um, I really wouldn't be surprised if he ends up um probably helping our attacking midfielder if we have an opportunity in that. I think because he's gonna drop in and link the play, I think we'll if Fatawu cuts in, um he'll definitely end up probably playing a little bit more on the wing. So he'll definitely try to pass the ball inside once he gets to that opportunity. So I wouldn't be surprised if kind of arriving at the box you'd see kind of like an IU or if it's a page, depending who it is. I think he gets interesting service from him. Um, I'd be interested to see if by any chance Mavi Didi gets some type of improvement from him coming in, which I think could happen, but it really just depends on where Marty wants him to really slot himself in there. He was more on the right, but I could definitely see him if it's needed to see if he could kind of switch it and kind of drop in more on the left, which could be really good for us.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. And I think yeah, your insight is great for this. And just one thing I wanted to mention, in terms of his time in the MLS and the quality of the MLS, how do you think that compares to the championship?
That's a great question, yeah. I think it'll be interesting to see how he adapts. I definitely don't. It definitely the championship is higher quality. And we've seen a lot of American players as well going to the championship, like a Josh Sargent,
Mm.
recently. Um, you had Daryl DK too, and one that actually I'm forgetting right now, who actually like went around my state and went to university in my state, who's playing for Derby right now. I forgot his name. But there's been players that we've seen go to the championship and be pretty good. So I think he'll feel comfortable, but I definitely would say that we should give him a little bit of time to adapt to the league. um, I don't think it's just he's gonna completely hit the ground running. As I think people have said, I think fire was a little bit too much for him at the time. But I think that he'll get used to the league. I think especially he's pretty aggressive, so he likes to get in there. Kind of, I think that's a very South American thing. So I feel like he won't really get too like bullied off the ball, honestly. And I think that if he does that, I think he'll feel comfortable. But I would say that people have to have their patience with him because I don't think that um it's gonna be hit the ground running. I think it's gonna take a little bit of time.
And I guess one of the best benefits of the championship as well is that if you look around, there's no like immediate killer strikers. Like, so you can get away with playing poorly.
Yeah,
And with Fatawu or Monga in behind, Ricardo, especially in the second half, we've seen we can see that these players will not just be him the focal point. As long as you
yeah.
can bring other people into play, I think that it's not just all reliant on him because we've got other people that are putting in brilliant goals at the moment.
Yeah, and that's I think the biggest thing. I think that's why we probably looked at him because I don't think we're looking at a killer striker like you said. We're just looking at someone that can definitely help link the play and do that function probably better than what IU is doing at the moment, and could score some goals if he has the possibility to, which I think that with time I think he definitely will do, but I don't think it's too much to expect that he's just gonna go on a tear. I think that that's not realistic. but definitely a team player, which I think we definitely need, and he'll definitely help us out for sure.
Yeah, I'm hoping so because that's what we need at the moment. And you can start to see in the latest game the team is starting to gel more, and especially some of the less more cancerous players are kind of getting out of the
Yeah.
squads as well, which is great. Um, is does he have an option of playing two up top, do you think? Because sometimes Marty has seen that a couple of times where we've tried to go for games and play two up top.
He's good at playing two up top. That's definitely something that I've seen during his time at the MLS. He did play with two up top, and he definitely feels comfortable when he has someone next to him. So I think that honestly, we'll probably see more of him, and I think those attacking facets more than I think the supportive facets when he actually has someone next to him, and he has a striking partner. So I think that that's very exciting. I think that's where I think we might see I think his best killer instinct and see some goals out of him. I think when it's just him as a focal point, I think it'll be much more link up play, much more supportive play. But I could definitely see him being more attacking when we have two strikers up top.
Hmm. And as part of that, who do you think in the current squad would be that player? Because Jordan Ayew, because his pace isn't quite there. We haven't seen anybody really. We haven't seen the strikers score in the championship this season. Fatau is probably an example I'm thinking of. Ricardo potentially, or the fullback.
It could be a fullback, I know, because I think we do have that kind of free roam player that always comes into the box and kind of surprises. So I think that honestly, I think Fatawa would be good in that area. And I could definitely see him doing well with that. I think as long as I think that's the biggest thing. If he gets the service, he's always gonna try to bury the shot. I don't think that he's not reluctant at all. He'll definitely have that killer instinct. I just think it's um really up to him having that service. If he doesn't have it, I think you'll definitely see more of like the associated play, and we won't really see that attacking side of him, which I think is probably what happened at Feyenoord.
Hmm. And with that, I think with sometimes it just takes one move to kind of transform us. We've seen with Fatau was a great example. This one has been linking for what, well, I think in this last 24 hours, it just went mad with the
Yeah,
amount of players we were linked to. Because all of a sudden it was outgoing, so some people are interested. Now we've got a few more. Um, is there anyone that you would want to, is there any kind of player you think would need to bring in to kind of complement him? Would it be another 10 or somebody like a Louis Page who we've seen has been building game on game? Do you think he's the kind of player that he'd get the best out of?
I honestly could see him getting the best out of Lewis Page. I think if Lewis Page gets more advanced in certain areas, I think he will definitely look for him, and I think he'll definitely benefit from it. Um, in terms of signing a player, I think I wouldn't being realistic. I don't really know like who we bring in to kind of help support him. I think I would definitely see him playing more as that sole nine and linking the play up. And if we need to, then he'll definitely play with someone next to him. Um, but I feel for now, I think it wouldn't be that bad if it's just him. I could definitely see him getting the best out of some of the youngsters that we have in the squad. I don't think that we necessarily have to go and buy more attacking players at that area. I think that there's definitely other priorities and other areas that we could look into that we
Yeah.
probably need to reinforce.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think another player that we've not mentioned so far, we've pretty much mentioned all the attackers apart from him. I think D Cordova Reed could be quite good in the 10, in my opinion, if he comes back for injury. And also, if we're playing two up top, what are your thoughts on potentially playing him and Daka? Because Daka thrives, I think, in the two up top. Is that the kind of chaos that we need? Because both are quite physical. Daka will press. He's not got the final ball, but if he can just give a pass away to Carranza, and I think that could potentially work.
That's actually a good idea, Neil. I honestly could probably see that. Honestly, as long as I think his passing is on point, which can sometimes be, iffy sometimes. Yeah. Honestly, I don't think that's a bad idea. I think honestly, I think he'd like that. And it definitely would give us a lot of opportunities to try to get the ball up top, up high. Since it would be too pressing forward. So I think that's actually not a bad idea. Um, I think it would be up to Marty to see if he ends up doing that. But I think that that's honestly a good idea, and I think that it would be good to explore, honestly.
I'm hoping so. And in terms of the way he fits in the Masters, you mentioned it briefly, but probably playing as the main number nine, linking the ball. In terms of his position in the squad and Marty's philosophy, do you think that they work quite well together?
I think so, 100%. Like I said, he's a team player, and I think that that definitely helps in this aspect in terms of what he's definitely looking for a nine. Um, and I think he definitely works. He works hard. I think that that's like I've always said. That's I think a South American thing with a lot of players. He's always worked hard, and no matter where he's gone. Even I think in that time when he was at Inter Miami, maybe when people didn't really um, didn't really like him as much. He's just he is a pressing monster. Like I really like him. I obviously wouldn't compare him anything to Julian Alvarez in that aspect, but I think he's really good in terms of at least getting output and at least influencing the game in some sort of way. I don't really think you'll really think that he's out of a game in certain aspects or in situations where maybe he offensively doesn't have a good game. I think he'll always look to press and he's a really good team player. So I 100% believe that. I think that's why we're bringing him in. I think that's why Marty like the profile of the player and it's a player that honestly some of the South American people that I know I think also suggested a while ago. So this is actually a signing that I think we could have seen a while ago. So I like it. I like it. I think it's definitely something that we could have explored earlier, when he went out of contract. But it doesn't hurt now. I think especially after I think a down year in the Netherlands, I think we get him on a pretty good deal on a loan with probably an option to buy.
And I think that works out well for everybody. Hopefully, with obviously probably the person that loses out the most probably Feyenoord, to be honest with you, in terms of a loan with. And then if there is an option to buy again, we're not sure of that yet. But and if there is, there's probably negotiations in terms of how many appearances. Is there an option? What is the clause, etc. At the moment. And one thing you mentioned is he's a utility player. So you mentioned kind of the pressing, the hard working. Is there anything else you would mention relating to that?
I think it's interesting. I mean, I don't know. I don't really think so. I think I mean, if I were to say something, I think, which is I think a negative out of him. I think because he's sometimes that utility player, he can get caught up if things don't go his way, and he did lose some discipline while he was in the MLS. He at one point he was, I think, that like the highest carded like striker in the MLS. So if things don't go his way, he does lose his patience sometimes, which hopefully I think that's something that I hope that he's starting to kind of work on his game because I think that that's not a good thing for us. Um, but I think the best thing is just really describing him as a utility player. I think he really is a jack of all trades, and a decent one at that. And I think that that's what we need.
I think you're right, and I think you're saying some great things there, which is great to hear. I think you can get away with that in the championship, especially being a bit more physical because it's a more physical league as well. And I think he would adapt. You mentioned one thing I forgot to mention when you talked about the MLS. Um, Forgot his name now. So you got Sargent, I think, is another great example. Somebody from the MLS. Also Duran coming from I think Chicago
That's true.
Fire
Yeah,
was it?
Duran did come out of
Absolutely
Chicago Fire. Yeah,
yeah, then absolutely killed it. And then obviously he's got his move to Saudi now. And I can't remember the other guy's name. Almiron, that's it. I kept
yeah,
saying
Miran. Yeah, yeah.
Amarim, but Almiron was another one for a season or for like half a season. He was absolutely unstoppable for Newcastle.
Yeah. So I think it does prove. I think that's something that I think a lot of people have talked about before how it translate the MLS going to England. I think it definitely does translate. Um, some do take a little bit longer than others to be able to completely get used to the league, but that is something that I would definitely say does benefit him because I think the MLS in general, as the years have gone on, has become a very physical league, kind of like the championship. So I think that honestly, um, maybe for him in that aspect, I don't think it's gonna be that big of a deal. I think maybe because he's been in the Netherlands for a bit, maybe adjusting to that might be a little bit interesting. But I think that's the biggest thing. I think the players that were really good physically on the ball, I think I've always seen that they've translated and they when they moved to England, they're pretty solid. So in that aspect, I don't think he'll feel that much of a difference. Definitely, I think on you know probably pace of play and stuff like that. But physically, I think he won't really feel that much of a difference. I think in that
Mhm.
area, maybe a little bit more, but honestly, the MLS is a physical league, so I think he'll thrive in that. At least we'll see that. I think at the beginning of his Leicester career.
I'm hoping so. And again, even if he misses the opportunities or um, he's not as clinical, as long as he's physical and he can bring other people in. I mean, you've looked at the likes of Monga, the talent that he is. You've seen Page developing. You're seeing Vatawu again, the limit, even not even near his ceiling yet. So the fact that he can bring these players in to go, look, if it's not working, I could physical and bring you in, I think will only work better for the other players in the team.
Yeah. So I think that's the biggest thing. I think he's definitely gonna be um supportive, and I think he's definitely gonna bring the best out of most of our players. And I think the thing that people should be excited about the most. I think Ayu's done it to a certain degree, but I think he can definitely do it to a better standard.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm with you. And I think one of the things I've seen him take is he a set piece taker as well. So I think with Bilal going, I've seen the thing is one thing to watch YouTube clips, and I've seen him a few on this. One thing is how's his set piece, but also how is he from a header for set piece? Because I think that's one thing that we are missing as well.
I think he is good. If I remember correctly, he was good in the MLS off of headers. Um I mean most of the time he's pretty accurate. In terms of set pieces, I'm not really completely sure. I think maybe he's capable of taking them, but I don't know if that would be the right thing to do. Um but I think aerially he's really good. Just as he's a jack of all trades. I think he's good aerially as well. Um, and for a stature, I think that's pretty good. He looks good. Um, it's just like I said. I think the biggest thing is that people haven't seen that in Europe, so I
Mhm.
think they ask themselves that those questions. But I think at the MLS, I think they're and a good enough of a sample size to see that that is part of his game when he's actually I think at his best.
Cool. No, that sounds good. And it's again sounding great stuff you're saying as well. And hopefully, again, he's going to thrive here. Just one final question. Do you think that he is does this feel like a Martin Glover signing to you, or does this feel like a Marty signing? Because before, we've seen the likes of Oliver Skip, that feels like a Steve Cooper signing, where you compare to like Fatawu or like Bill Alcanus, they seem like a Martin Glover signing.
I think I honestly see this as a Marty signing because I feel like we hadn't gotten linked to him like ever. And I think even through all the different links that we've seen, I think it's definitely Marty giving his input to the recruitment. So I definitely see that was him. I think that was he asked for Julian, and I think they saw it as feasible, and I think that's a good thing because I think sometimes I think in the past we've signed certain players that haven't fit our system, but I think in general I think this is a player that even if in the foreseeable future, if we end up signing him, um, and yeah, Marty might depart or something like that, I could definitely see him if he ends up staying as someone that I think could provide great option for any type of manager that comes in with this style of play. So honestly, I think it's a good signing, and hopefully, I think he does well with us this season, and looking really forward to see what he gives us. I think like I said, I think Feyenoord wasn't a true reflection, I think, of the player he is. And I honestly think that probably the championship he'll feel more comfortable, and I think it'll remind him a little bit of what it was like playing in MLS to a certain degree, and I think that'll definitely make him feel a little bit more comfortable.
Cool. No, that sounds great. Diego, honestly, been amazing chatting with you. Some really great stuff here as well. Anything else you want to plug? Or again, is there any other players that you think Leicester should be looking at as well? Because I know you're all over the South American football.
That's hard. I think right now I think a lot of them have left to Europe right now, so I think it's difficult right now to say that we could probably bring in certain players from South America. Um, I know that we've had an eye, and hopefully we keep having an eye for those types of players that come out of South America directly from the source. For now, I think it'll give it some time. I think we'll see a couple more youngsters pop up, but for now, I think probably I think it's best to kind of stay in Europe and look for certain players. Probably help with Marty's Scandinavian knowledge. I think that's a really good area to look at. But I think eventually we would see I think some players from South America. So hopefully I think we look into that and more come in because I think be I think Facu was a great example. I think what a South American player is, and I think there was huge doubts of him like when we first came on last year during this time to talk about Facu. I think a lot of people had their own opinions formulated before they even saw him play, and then we ended up seeing the type of player he was. Even though he probably fizzled out during um, our RVN's tenure, but he was amazing for us, and I think that we're probably getting a player of that similar ability. Maybe not as much with the same impact as I think Facu did in his time, but he's definitely going to be a really good player for us. And I cross my fingers on that. Hopefully that happens.
Yeah, I'm hoping so because again, you're pretty much everything you said on Buonanotte was spot on for that as well. And just on that, what do you think of his move to Chelsea? Because again, they're just everybody signing. Chelsea are just signing everybody at the moment, and I think all the Argentinians from Brighton have ended up pretty much. Barco's the only one that's there, I think now, at Brighton, which pretty means he's probably going to
Actually, no,
Chelsea next year.
he actually he's at Strasbourg right now, but just bought through Strasbourg, so he's not at Chelsea right now. Yeah, I think it's disappointing because I definitely there was links to Dortmund, and I think that was very exciting when I first saw that. I think he definitely would have thrived in Germany. Um, yeah, I just don't really know how much game time he's gonna get. I think if any, probably not that much. And I think he needs that in terms of development to be able to play consistently week in and week out. So that's a hard one for him. Kind of sad to see that, he's probably gonna be there for a year and he's not gonna develop to the level that I think that he could be at the moment. Um, but I mean, it's Chelsea, and Chelsea's really buying everyone, like you said. So, um, yeah, it's unfortunate. And I think very interesting that Brighton didn't want to keep him and saw him in their plans. I think, they did win today, but I think he definitely could have given them a spark, and he could have been good for them. So,
But it's also the amount of players that Brighton sign as well.
yeah, I know
Just
it's
that the whole game of we'll make them bigger, we'll then potentially sell them on, and that's part of the whole model. And just in terms of Leicester as well, what are your not to say predictions for the season, like how we finish, but how do you think now we've got Marty in? Now it looks like the window's closed. Carranza's the only one that's really linked. But in general, is there anything? What are your predictions for the rest of the season if he was to come in and for Marty and the team?
That's interesting. I think we've really nicked so many games recently. I think that'll give us good momentum. Um, I mean, if I'm gonna be completely honest, I definitely see us at least like top five, top six. I think if gonna be completely honest, obviously depending on if we get a points deduction. Um, at the minimum. But it really just depends on really just I think those tough games. I think like the one that we did have on Friday, if we're able to stick out and even though maybe we might not be as offensive sometimes and um we don't look as good on the offensive line that we're able to feel comfortable defensively, which I think we did in that match most of the time. And we get those points out of those games. But I think if we're able to do that, um, I there is a possibility without a points deduction that we end up probably somewhere in second or third if I'm gonna be optimistic with it. But I think the goal I think is top six. Make the playoffs, see where we end up going in there. But yeah, I think for now, I think if no points are deducted, I think we could make a safe spot to say that we could maybe finish second or third. and try to see if we could somewhat get that at least that second spot for automatic promotion. But I think title for now I think is too much, and I don't think we're capable of that right now. And I think that maybe for now is a lot of pressure. So yeah,
Hmm.
that's what I think.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And I think if we, considering that teams like Southampton started not poorly, I think Ipswich have not started that well. I thought the year they went up, considering the team they built and they've come down, it's not quite got going. The fact that we've not got going and we've still picked up points is massive.
That's a big thing. Yeah, I think
Yeah, so
that's what's really helping us right now. And if we're still able to be that consistent and find and get points even when I think we don't look our best, I think that that's going to be huge. And I think deciding where we end up at the end of the season and you know whether or not I think we end up in an automatic promotion spot in second or we end up having to play the playoffs, unfortunately.
cool. Yeah, and I'm with you. And I think hopefully that's the case. And let's see who else we get in. If there is anybody that's, I would say even start to get the names, but there's so many names that we're linked with at the moment over the last 24 hours. It's becoming crazy. But Carranza's been probably the main one that's come and stood out. But it looks like he's pretty much coming in from what people are saying. Diego, again, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, man. Anything else that you thank you so much for your knowledge and time. I really appreciate it, and hopefully the viewers appreciate it as well. Is there any other thing you want to plug or anything else you want to mention?
No, not really at all. I think like I said, I think watch Neo Beyond the 90 still here. So I think that's the biggest thing. Always staying loyal to Neo.
Cool. I appreciate that. Again, if everybody you'd like, subscribe, all that good stuff, I'll leave Diego's Twitter down below if you want to see his comments as well. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. So goodbye.